Well, welcome back to another Greyscalegorilla podcast. Here we are again. We got the whole crew together here. Chris Schmidt, how are you today, sir?
Hello. Happy Tuesday.
Happy Tuesday. That's right. We recording this on a Tuesday instead of a Monday because of the holiday. Chad, how are you, sir?
Doing well.
Wonderful. Happy Tuesday. We're going to get right into this one today. Not a ton of news. It's beginning of the year. Everyone's kind of ramping in to everything. Let me pull up my notes real quick though, just to make sure. Oh yeah. Well, there's the C4D meetup tomorrow, but Chris just told me that that's all sold out. Is that correct?
Yep, we filled that one up. We're at Leviathan, and 100 tickets disappeared instantly. Free tickets.
So for those of you listening that are like, I want to go to that, where can people go, Chris, so that the next Cinema 4D meetup in Chicago, they can come to and try to get a ticket for? Is there a way that
the best way is probably just searching for Chicago C4D on Facebook or following Chicago C4D on Twitter, and that's where we tend to make the first announcements. So it's just first come, first serve.
Awesome.
That, and if you're in Chicago, then you can be hanging out in the Chicago Slack channel, and that's usually the first place we go because that's making sure it's all the locals who are typically regulars.
That's awesome. And then, there's news about Ask GSG. Chris, you want to tell us about season 4 of Ask GSG?
Yes. So last Wednesday, we did the first episode of Ask GSG season 4. It was super exciting to get back into it. It was super cool. We had a bunch of old faces, a whole bunch of new faces. It was really cool getting back into the groove of things. So if you don't know what Ask GSG is, of course, it's every Wednesday. We do 2 hours of just live streaming Cinema 4D. For the most part, people come in, ask questions, and we try and figure it out and just tackle a couple different projects every Wednesday. It's really fun. So we're doing that now on Wednesdays. You can always jump over to Greyscalegorilla/live to see the schedule of when those are coming up. And very important to note is we do sell previous seasons of Ask GSG on Grayscale Gorilla. So we've already got season 1, 2, and 3 up as a bundle. And I think that's up for like $229. And we're not changing. Right now, if you go and get that bundle, you will automatically be getting all of season 4. And that's an ongoing thing. So like every week I'm adding on the new episode. So if you pick it up now, you get season 4 for free pretty much until we finally lock that in probably a couple weeks.
Big news, man. I think after this season, there'll be like over 200 hours, or it might already be 200 hours.
It might be about 200 hours right now. So
of Chris answering Cinema 4D questions.
It's a lot of content.
It's a lot of content.
Yeah. Whole lot.
You're looking at our videos like, I wish there was like 30 more hours. Well, you can go get 200 more hours of Chris answering Cinema 4D questions over at Ask GSG bundle. Cool, man. That's awesome. We're also working on a ton of new products, plugins this year. We can't spill out too much of it, but we're excited about that behind the scenes. A lot of behind the scenes stuff. So let's talk about non-behind the scenes stuff. Let's talk about some questions that we're going to try to answer today, specifically from our audience. And we say this all the time on our podcast. If you guys have any questions, especially if it's about Cinema 4D specifically, go to Ask GSG and try to show up live for Chris's shows. But when it's about your career or about this industry, that's the kind of stuff we talk about on this podcast. And we always ask for your feedback, always ask for your questions. It sounds like we got a good question from one of our listeners. And Chad, do you have that one set up?
Yeah, so this question came to us via our GSG Connect Slack channel, which is a Slack channel that's open to every GSG customer. If you're not on it, I suggest you get on it because we have almost 2,000 people active up there asking questions, answering questions. And this question came to us from Billy. Billy had a question. He wants to know what we think about adding process videos or breakdowns on your demo reel or sending those to potential employers or clients. And so that sort of sparked a conversation with us about just show reels and self-promotion in general that we thought would make a good subject for today's podcast.
Yeah, I think we'll get to the general idea of self-promotion and how to get the word out about what you do best. But to Billy's point too, what do you think about process reels? What do you think about putting that stuff on your reel or sending that to clients?
Well, in my opinion, I think anytime you can do a video breakdown of your work, especially if it's work that you're very proud of or maybe has a really unique execution or unique technique that you put into it. I think that's great. I think breakdown reels, people love them, clients love them, employers love them, especially if they're done well. Then it can only be a good thing. But it has to have something in there that I think is sort of unique, or maybe a take on a pulling off a specific type of shot that maybe the people or person you're presenting it to didn't think of. So it can't just be like a straight up, here it is before the green screen and here it is with the green screen gone, and like that sort of thing is not super interesting. But if it's well edited and you actually have some really cool production techniques that you want to show off, absolutely.
I could see that. Like if it's just here's the gray version and here's the final version, that's not as fun.
Not really. I mean, it can be to your peers if like you want to be able to show that you did everything, or you did the editing and you did this part and that part. But yeah, one of my favorite breakdowns that I was ever a part of was done by Tim Little, a guy that used to work for me, and he did such a good job on this breakdown for this one particular spot that we did that he became the breakdown guy. Like he was like, he just had such a knack for it. Like he worked his butt off, like just making this edit and making everything kind of come to life. And it was just, I think he ended up doing like 2 or 3 more for us after that. And yeah, when they're well done, they can be really compelling and fun to watch for sure.
That turns into a very specific, maybe if it's a studio breakdown or a personal breakdown. And even that, if, like if you're a modeler, then that almost turns into like time lapses if you were to show that off. But then if you're maybe doing more technical TD stuff, then your entire thing is almost breakdowns at that point, wouldn't you think? So like, I think modeling, there's less breakdown. Or if you're doing texture work, then you want to see like the textures, and maybe you see the unwrapped version of it. But if you're doing rigging, then okay, now we want to see the controls. We want to see all the things set up. It's like, okay, cool. Now we're seeing how that went together.
I love a good rigging reel.
Oh
like,
yeah.
I just, I don't rig. I'm terrible at it. It's one of those things that I'm just not a rigger. But I have this fascination with rigging reels that just, I love watching people build controls for something that it's just satisfying to watch.
Yeah, there's an element of this which it's these breakdown reels always hit both sides, which is hard to do. Your clients like to see the actual work that's put into it, because so much of it, especially if they only see the final bit or they see a reel, they're like, well, sometimes it's hard to see how much work goes into all these things. And they're like, well, there just must be a plugin to do this, right? So by showing this breakdown, it's almost a signal of like, look at all the work that goes into this, and I and my team know how to do this. And then of course, to your peers, it's also something that's so cool because we all look at the gray stuff more than we look at the final stuff, right? We only see the final bit a couple times and we're on to the next project. Whereas we're in the guts of it all day and kind of like to see everyone else's guts as well. So yeah, it is one of those things that works for both sides, that if you have time to do it right, I could definitely see that be a part of it. And like you said, people love behind the scenes, people love breakdowns, people love before and afters. So yeah, that's a fun part of the process.
I always love the ones where you can see like it's an After Effects. You see like the layers like turning off, and it's like 3 dozen layers turning off, and then they're all separated in Z space, and the camera like pans to the side and then back again. You're like, oh my god! Like even us, like we have a really good idea of the type of stuff that goes into that, and you can see those breakdowns, and you're like, whoa, okay, there's even more than I thought there was.
But then you think about like, damn, like not only did they do all that stuff, but just to make the breakdown and like that whole process, it's like, what? Like that's like, and it's really like having like worked at a studio for so long, those breakdowns are gold. Those are like, if you can like that next to a good case study, a breakdown is gold. But they're really hard to do because they take so much time, and you're on to the next thing, and you don't really have time to think about breaking down, or everybody's just done with that project. They don't even want to think about it because maybe it ended poorly or they're just tired of it, whatever. So it takes a lot of willpower to get a good breakdown done once a job is through, because nobody wants to deal with it. But luckily we found Tim, and Tim, like, he was the kind of guy where I would go over to his desk and be like, Tim, we shipped that job like 2 weeks ago. Why is this still open on your machine? Well, this one thing, it just wasn't right. I wanted to make it right. I'm like, dude, it's airing. Like, he's like, no, for our version. I'm like, all right, hey, go for it. So
what makes, is there a way to make a good breakdown? Are there rules? Do you have any insight to if somebody's going to do one of those, how to make it as entertaining or as helpful as possible?
I'd say, like, if it's client, like, figure out who your audience is and sort of tailor it to that. If the audience is like, oh, we're going to do a breakdown on this thing that we did because we want to get more jobs like that from clients, then you may not dig as deep into the minutia of how it was done. It might be a little bit more flashy, surface level kind of breakdown. But if you're doing it to show off or to promote your technical prowess as a studio or as an individual, then you might get a little deeper and do the whole thing that Chris was talking about, like the little Z-depth breakout thing, which is really cool and fun. But if you're a rigger, and like the only way you can really show your work is to actually show the rig, which is not something that anybody ever sees, then your reel is predominantly like that. It's predominantly showing your rigs. And I think the best rigging reels that I've seen are ones that are kind of fun and sort of kind of walk you through their thought process and how they ended up with the rig that they did, so that you can kind of get in their headspace. And my favorite breakdowns in general are the ones that sort of start with even like a sketch and sort of build up to the excuse me, to the final thing.
Now, what about putting those breakdowns in your reel? And I don't know if this is something I ever thought about until now as we're thinking about it, but some reels are full of breakdowns, and they are, but also some reels are just all the glossy stuff all the time. They're just like logos, shiny, and kind of talking about all the great stuff they worked on and how it looks. Sometimes it's breakdown. Is there a certain type of artist that needs to have more of those breakdowns in the reel, like you're saying? Like if you're doing the rigging on all those projects, is putting that in your reel going to serve you better long term, or is it better to have it separate and just put the glossy stuff as like your quote reel and have all the behind the scenes separate?
I mean, if you're a TD, if you're an effects TD, then a glossy reel is really not going to do much in terms of getting you work. You're going to want to show a little bit of what you contributed to these final pieces. That could be a breakdown. It could just be like a separated element. It could be, a number of different things. So I think that it depends on the facility, it depends on the artist. I don't know. What do you think, Chris?
That's an interesting specificity to it, because it's something that's actually frustrated me when I've watched. It's not like I've ever hired anybody, but when watching certain reels, you'll see a big glossy shot. It's like, whatever, it's a shot from a Terminator movie, and it's like all this crazy stuff's going and everything, and then it will just say in the corner like texture artist or rigger or something, and you're seeing the final shot. It's like, okay, that's cool, but I would get like, I want to see a couple seconds of that shot, and then I want like to have the spaceship zoom up close to the screen and then see the controls sliding around of like the way the engine moves and this thing spinning and this. You can't get any of that from the glossy shot. And if you did the FX in it, then it's like, okay, there's so much going on here. I can't tell if you did everything, if you did a little bit. So in that case, the final glossy shot just leaves me confused and leaves it ambiguous as to what you worked on. So along those lines, I would like to see, like, I want to see the final glossy shot, but I want to see, what did you contribute? What is your technical part of this? Like, by far.
Yeah, I think in a lot of those types, and specifically movies, it's hard for artists, and I've heard this from people that work in that industry. It's hard for them to get the assets or the rights to the assets to do like a proper breakdown on a shot like a Terminator or whatever. So it's hard for them to get approval to do those things, which I totally understand. But I think if you're not, and you do something that's more in the commercial space or the automotive space or whatever the space, if you do something that the glossy finished product maybe doesn't show off everything that you think you brought to the project, then yeah, right? Like make something that does, like whether it's what Chris said and like it's a fly through or whatever it is, to make that point. If there's one thing that, I've learned over the years is like you can never be too clear about what you're trying to communicate with people. And it's, if you're trying to say, well, I'm a texture artist. Okay, cool. Show me the finished shot for sure. But then I want to see some of your textures. Like show me a material breakdown. Show me, do a before and after or something. I don't know, whatever it is, but show me what you bring. I think that's important for sure.
So I want to maybe zoom this topic out a little bit into even just broad strokes demo reels, and what people, essentially the idea of self-promotion and keeping that kind of stuff up to date, and to what degree you need to do that, because I think if you interact with any other artist and even just yourself, it's once in a blue moon that you're going to find somebody who's like, oh yeah, I have an up-to-date reel. You should go check it out. Every single person is like, no, don't look at my reel. I haven't updated it in 5 years and 8 years. Like, just don't look. Like, I don't have a reel. So this is rampant, where people do not keep their stuff up to date, maybe in the form of a reel, but then there's the more immediate things as well, which like being social media and keeping up to date on like projects you're doing. If you're freelance, maybe you can talk more about final projects. If you're part of a company, maybe it's a little tougher. If you're independent, or maybe it's even side projects, like you're doing things for fun, just for your own personal Instagram feed. So there's a lot of different ways of tackling self-promotion, on the internet.
Yeah, that's interesting. I don't know if there's like the right way too. I think there's a reason so many reels are out of date and so many sites are out of date, and part of it is that they are busy, right? Or they've been working full time, or they've been full of freelance work for so long they don't need to promote themselves as much anymore. But I think part of it too is that the reel is not always the only way that people find out about you. I think there are so many people, and some of them are a little bit more social by nature, but there's so many people that just will have a job. People know that they're good at what they do. People have seen their work. They've worked with them. They've traveled around in different circles. And if they wanted a new job or needed work, they know how to go find it without sending their reel. You know what I mean? It's almost like a resume at a certain point. There are people that can go get the job that they need without a resume. And then there are people that need to show up with a piece of paper. And I don't know if that's even a broader topic, but how do you, it sounds like almost what you're asking, like, how do you know when to keep it updated? And what does it do to when people go to your site and it's 5 years out of date or 10 years out of date? What does that do? Does that hurt you, or does that help you? I don't know. Is there a rule? Chad, what's your oldest reel?
Oh man.
What's your newest reel?
Yeah, I mean,
so I here's the thing. I hate cut and reel. I absolutely despise it. I hate the process. I hate everything about it, because I'm just so self-deprecating that what I hate about cutting a reel is I'm forced to look at all the stuff that I wish I could have done better. And I realize like what a bunch of crap I worked on, or I just get really depressed when I cut a reel. So I haven't cut a montage in a really, really long time. Instead, I chose to just post projects, and just, you can look at individual projects on, on the site or whatever. And that I felt was a lot easier to keep up to date. It was a lot easier for me to sort of like not get depressed about it. And so, yeah, I haven't cut a montage in a really long time. Not to say that people shouldn't, because I think when you're when you're newer, or maybe you're you need the montage refreshed every year, whatever, you're a studio freelancer, whatever, a montage is very valuable. I get that. It's just not something that I liked doing, so I just chose not to do it. But I would say that keep it. I only would, and I've cut montages at studios, like that's totally different. Like when you're at a studio and you're cutting a montage as a studio, then that's a different process. It's totally fine. I'm for those. Those are great ways to get work. And I think they should be updated, just like your personal montage should be updated whenever you have at least 60% new work to put on it. Otherwise, it's just not like, you're going to feel a struggle. You're going to be like, oh, I'm cutting the same stuff. But if you have like 60% new stuff that's like really good, then yeah, do it. And I always tell people this too, like get someone else to cut it. Like don't cut your own. Try not to cut your own montage. That's a lesson that I think if you don't, just find an editor. Find someone that is an actual editor. Don't tell them anything for the first cut about what you want. Just give them the song and say, here's my pile of work. Make it awesome. Here's some references of other montages that I like, and see what they come back with, because you're going to get a totally different perspective on your work.
That's interesting. That's a really good idea.
That was amazing when I started doing that. I loved working with an editor. You just get so much more, so much different. It's put together in a way you would have never done it. And because it's their job to put things together, it ends up looking so much better.
That's also the case. You're too close to the work. Like you can't look at it objectively. You've spent hundreds of hours staring at that shot, even if it was a year ago. So how can you possibly judge where it should go and when you should cut? And like, I worked really hard on that shot, so I want to put it in. But you know what? Maybe it's not as sexy as a different shot somewhere else.
Right. I worked so hard.
That's the hardest thing to hear. You'll walk in, you'll see that edit for the first time, and the editor will not have used that one thing that you busted your ass on that is like just so hard to do. And the editor won't even use it. And you'll be like, well, I didn't use that one thing. And they'll be like, well, it's just not that interesting to look at. And you're like, oh, damn, you're right.
Ow, right in the heart.
But ultimately, like that's why editors are so powerful in visual storytelling, because they're bringing a fresh perspective to the story and telling it through sort of their lens. And that's why filmmakers don't make good editors usually, because they just don't know what to cut.
Yeah, it's all in there. That's why the director's cut is always double the length, right?
Right.
You go put it all in there.
Well, and even that, think about like along those lines. Every time you watch a director's cut, or not even a director's cut, when you watch the behind the scenes, the deleted scenes, it's always like, yeah, that probably shouldn't have been in the movie. It's like, I get it, and it's neat, but it's always like, oh, wait, that contradicts this character. It did this thing, or changed the tone of it. Like, it's so good they didn't put that in. And a director would, it's like, well, I shot it and it was good. It was a brilliant performance. It's like, well, you don't have the fresh eyes you need.
Yep. I mean, I love working with an editor on reels, because the good ones too will be like, they'll come at you with the cut of your reel and they'll be like, yeah, you know what? I really need a shot that does this to get us from this cut to that cut. And I didn't see it in the work that you gave me. And then you'll look at the reel and you'll see like, oh yeah, if I had something that moved this way. And I've actually gone back and made stuff like little 3-second animations just to put in the reel to bridge two things together that could have been from anything.
Yeah,
that's a good trick.
Making custom pieces for the reel that's what engaged me enough to get started on making reels, was making like an intro, outro kind of separate piece to introduce the reel, almost like making that as part of the process. And then the idea to like start to stitch things together or like make little, just little flourishes, and like it's a little easier with kind of motion design kind of stuff, but just fun colors and patterns and things that no client had to direct, just pretty things that I wanted to add to the reel to like show my style more. And that's what re-engaged me in making a reel. rather than looking at all the work that I know I could do better with, if you need an excuse to like get interested in your own reel, think of it that way. Think of it like a couple little projects that you can put in there, So I don't know. I think this is on topic. I don't want to spring this on you, but I thought maybe we can go through some of the rules for making a reel, on what you think should be included or not included when making let's go with like a personal reel or like a freelance reel, or getting started.
I think we're gonna have to trust Chad's instinct on here. We're a little too removed at this point.
Yeah. All right. I'm in.
Oh man, you're putting it all on me, dude.
Yep, all on you, Chad.
Yeah,
we could. I got some thoughts here.
You got opinions.
Yeah, man. I watch reels all the time.
I would say that number one rule for me. Well, I got a lot of forget that. I got more than
number one.
I got a lot of number one rules. All right, one of the big rules, one of the big ones is don't put any tutorials in your reel. That is like, don't put one of our tutorials that you've done in your reel, please. I get so much crap from people saying, you see all your tutorials in people's reels. So for the love of God, please don't do that.
You're not doing yourself a favor either.
Yeah,
you're breaking Chad's heart, first of all. But most importantly, nobody sees that reel and says, "Oh, this is really great." Right? They also have seen that work, even if they're not aware of us, right? So even if you think you're trying to fool somebody out there that may not know about Greyscalegorilla, and you're like, I'll just put this in there, I made it, and technically you made it, right? Even if they have never seen or watched any of our tutorials or know about us, they have seen 1,000 other reels with the same thing in it, and they are not fooled. That's definitely a good one.
I'd never watched reels with the sound on, unless it was a reel that I thought was really, really good. I just didn't have the sound on, and it's because I'm doing other things or whatever. So don't make your reel rely on a track to be interesting. I'm going to keep going.
Go.
Don't
What's the next number one?
Don't do elaborate titles with your name. Keep it simple, minimalistic. Just get to the point. Put the name, get me into the reel, and then at the end, I want name and contact info, and then that's it. And don't let your animation for your name be the best thing or the longest thing on your reel. Oh, what else? Don't be afraid to have a short reel. A short reel is okay. I've seen reels that are a minute long and good. And I think that anything over 4 minutes had better be amazing, because I'm probably only going to watch like the first minute, if that. And so the way that, and this is a little piece of advice that I share with a lot of people that I've worked with over the years, and it's just from me watching a lot of reels, and that is, start off with something really good, right? That should be within the first 3 shots, something that's going to keep me engaged. Then put your sort of okay stuff, your filler, as I call it, in the middle. And then not at the end, but I would say 3/4 of the way in, put your best thing. And then end with whatever. Because chances are I'm only going to watch the first 40 seconds-ish of your reel. And then if something in there keeps me engaged, then I'll give it another chance. But very rarely would I ever watch a reel all the way down to the name, unless it's like, oh my God, this reel is sick. So just kind of like imagine it like that. Like, okay, I need something really zingy in the first 30 seconds, and then filler, and then something that really drives it home right before the end, not at the end.
Interesting. Yeah, you were perfectly following like that high school type format of like put your second best content right at the beginning, your very best content as the last word, and then everything else in the middle. But you're saying that the someone reviewing reels, you've only got their attention for maybe 30 seconds a minute. So you got to hook them, but then they might not make it to the end. So don't wait until the last second for it.
Yep. Especially because if they like everybody, they're watching the little time thing go.
Mm-hmm.
And so once they get a feel for what you're doing, if it's like halfway through, or let's say a little over halfway, if they're like, okay, I'm getting the vibe, I don't need to see anymore. So that's when you hit them. Like right at that moment where you think they're going to be like, I'm done. Like that's when you hit them with whatever magic you've got.
Interesting. Is there anything that would make you just not even give them that 30 seconds? Like what's the first 30 seconds that will lose you even for that part?
Dragons, orcs,
oh my god,
castles,
360
swords.
You just don't like fantasy?
Just like if they here's the funny thing. I gotta make sure I'm clearing this in my head before I tell the story, because I want to make sure that I'm not gonna like
no names.
Yeah, okay. So one of the things when I was at the studio we would do is we would go to portfolio day at this school, and it was just an excuse to get out of the building, really, just an excuse to goof off. And we got to this one school and we're like, let's have some fun with it. Let's do a scavenger hunt. First person to find a large, well-endowed barbarian woman, a dragon, and I forget what the other one was. Were you there, Nick? I don't remember if you were there. But we had this list, and so the first person that could go around to all these different people's portfolios and find these 3 items was the winner.
All the tropes.
Yeah. So and looking back on it now, it was kind of a crappy, sort of almost cruel thing to do without actually telling these students like you probably shouldn't have this stuff on your reel, and here's why. Looking back on it, like that's what we should have done. But yeah, those are the tropes that I'd say stay away from any sort of trope, stay away from copywritten material, stay away from recreating shots in movies, all the stuff that everybody else says too, I think. But yeah, that's a big no-no. I mean, unless your orc is like so incredibly amazing that will transcend the fact that it's fantasy, because I wasn't in the fantasy business, but maybe if you're in the fantasy business, then
that's tough, because I the commercial side of things, which we were on, is so not that it's easy to go like, obviously we wouldn't hire that person, but I think a lot of them have, dreams of going to Pixar, right? And like they want character studies and they want animation and they want, they actually like seeing more of, I would assume that they would like to see more of those like animation walk cycles, 360s of your models. And where in at least in our space and in commercial world, and I think that's most of our listeners is in the commercial side of things, that it's a little bit less about all the detail and all that, and it's more about what you can pull off in the shortest amount of time, or like or how beautiful you can make something simple, and it's just a different hire.
I used to have arguments with professors because they would ask us to come out to these portfolio shows and whatnot. Then they'd ask like, oh, what'd you think? And I would say, well, there's a lot of character stuff happening. And I got to say, like, there's not a lot of character work in our business. Like, I think absolutely you go into features, there's a ton of that. But the amount of jobs doing character animation is really small compared to motion design and what we were doing and what everybody I think listening is doing in terms of commercial motion design. So I would always tell them, like, it's not like, I don't really want to see all these walk cycles. I'd rather see them do something with particles or do something with a camera move or typography or something creative in that way. But the schools, I think, at least at that time, were just so wanting to bring kids in and sell them on the idea that they were going to be making Pixar movies when they graduated. Right. And so they had this curriculum that was like, you're going to make a character and make him walk. And now he's at the end of the year, you're going to make him do a little thing. And then they graduate with this character that they've got and they can't get a job. And that sucks. And that's not cool. And I don't know where I'm going with that. But
That's like a commercial catch-22. Like they don't get the student into the classroom without showing them that they're going to animate this dragon because that's what the student wants to do. But if there's no market for that, I mean, you're saying like Hollywood movies, but like how many people are actually working on the dragon? Like most people are doing like the FX work and the rigging and the texturing and the modeling. Like one person out of 1,000 is animating the dragon.
Yeah, that's the problem. I think, well, I haven't actually looked at too many school curriculums lately. I've been a little bit out of it, but at that time there was just this shoving character stuff down people's throats. And I think a lot of it had to do with they didn't really know how to teach anything else. And there wasn't really, a way to sell an incoming student on an animation program if it wasn't something that they could relate to. Because if you show a potential college animation student some motion design for a fake beverage commercial, they're going to be like, I don't want to do that. Like, I want to make dragons, dude. Like, so, but the reality is like cut to 4 years later, this person has a bunch of dragons on the reel and they end up, taking an accounting job to pay the bills, and they never do anything in motion design or 3D at all. But it's somewhere. I'm not saying that you need to sell students on like making beverage commercials when they get into college. I think you can rope them with the movie stuff, but then at some point you have to have a conversation and say, listen, not everybody's going to get to do the dragons. You might have to like spin a bottle of Coke around. Are you cool with that? Because here's your choices: not getting to work on dragons and being an accountant, or not getting to work on dragons, but still being able to do 3D and make a living, but it's just not with dragons. Is that cool? And like, if you can have that conversation with somebody, then they'll probably say, yeah, I'm cool with that.
I think honestly, I would love to talk more about schooling and that process and trying to get the word out to a lot of students, potential students. I don't know. I think it's a little off topic for this one, but you're making me want to say like 80 things that will make this an hour-long podcast.
I just want to talk about dragons some more.
Something tells me Chris's reel would be nothing but dragons.
Well, but the rule I'm getting out of this, right? If you're gonna take the like don't and turn it into a do, is put stuff on the reel that will get you hired. Like put the things on your reel. Like ideally, where this reel is being seen and the type of work that they do, and you're going to self-select the work that is similar to their style or what they're looking for, right? In a perfect world, you could like make a custom reel for every viewer.
Well, but you can do that. That's nothing wrong with that.
And I've seen that. I've seen reels where they say, here's our VFX work, here's our motion design work, and here's our like editing, post-production kind of like stuff, right? And you could separate that out. But it's reminding me of a rule for reels in general, which is you don't need to put everything you've ever made on your reel. And you could totally leave stuff out. And I think early on, especially, it's hard to do because you're short on content anyway. You're like, I only have these 10 projects, and if I leave half of them off, well, now I only have 5 things to show. So it's almost at that point where you either need more stuff and just forget the reel, just post a project and make more stuff, or you understand that you don't have to put like the tutorial you did or your schoolwork or anything. You don't have to put anything on your reel. Put the things on there that are for the person who's watching it, not for you, right? You're as an artist, your ability to convey the right feeling to the right person does not stop when you make your reel. You need to keep that engine running and say, when I make this reel, who's going to be watching it and what do they need to feel by the end of it? And how do I keep their attention? Like Chad was saying, put something right away and put something right in the middle. How do you engineer this piece of media to get the right attention for the right people. Because honestly, that is what you're being hired to do almost anywhere, no matter what you're doing, especially in commercial. You're being hired to understand that what you're selling is emotion, and what you're selling is trying to capture people's attention and tell them something that you want them to know. And if you approach your reel that way, and not just as a way to slap all your stuff together, but understand that your reel could potentially be the way that people understand that you get it. Oh, this person gets it because they were snappy to the point. They know that they made the reel for the person watching it, not for them or their peers.
Right.
So they got right to the point. Okay, I'm a busy person trying to hire somebody. I'm watching 50 of these things today. So you made it short, you made it snappy, you put something right up front to hook them, you put it in the middle, you put your email address at the end or your website so they could find you easily. Like, you understand that this piece of media is not for you and that it's for an audience to do a certain thing, which is either get you hired or freelance or whatever. And understanding that that's what a reel is for, it completely flips how you can approach a reel and put the right stuff in there. This is also similar to not putting anything in your reel that you don't want to get hired to do. Right?
Oh yeah, that's a big one. That one's more for. Actually, no, that applies to just about everybody. Yeah.
Right. It's if you did that work and you're not proud of it, you didn't like doing it, and it's not what you want to do in the future, definitely don't put that in your reel.
Yeah, that's I've been bitten in the butt by that.
So, because somebody will like it and go, I want you to do that for me, for my brand. And you're like, oh, I hated that job.
And now you're the guy who does that type of work. That's you. That's your brand.
Right. Now
this is the project you hated.
Well, now you did two of them.
That makes me think this ties in a little bit to the conversation we were having about the client, like the work that pays the bills, and then the super sexy work that you do that isn't going to pay the bills and you work all of your hours on. Like, that's the work that you want to do. So like that's the work you want to do your breakdowns on. Like, you don't do the breakdowns for like the boring like lawyer advertisement on TV. You do the breakdowns when you did some Marvel title sequence that you didn't get any money for, but like, this is what I want people to think about when they think about our company. Yep. And that projects into like individual reels and ways of portraying yourself online.
Some clients, this is not necessarily studios looking at reels, but some clients look at reels as like a menu, and they literally are looking for a studio that's done something similar to what they have in mind, and they are going to pick through the reels until they find that one thing, and then they'll say, okay, we want you to do that one thing on your reel that you did right there. And so just know that and be okay with that, and think about your reel. Like, okay, if any of the parts of this reel get pointed out by a client, like they want me to redo it, how can I talk about that? Is that even something I want to do? If so, or if not, then yeah, don't probably put it in your reel. But yeah, that's something that I think a lot of people, a lot of freelancers or individual small studios that have sent their work around and gotten hired, I'm sure they already know this, that a lot of clients, especially direct to client, not agency clients, will look at a reel almost like a menu and say, I want a little bit of this, a little bit of that, give me 2 orders of that. And that's just be aware of it.
Well, that goes back to, I mean, this wasn't supposed to be a podcast about reels. That's what it turned into. But even like Nick was talking about the student reel, and the student reel is almost entirely going to be built up of, you're just graduated. It's probably going to be like, I did this assignment, I did this assignment, I did this assignment. And those assignments are all going to be very different. Almost every single one of them, project-wise, is going to be focused on almost a different industry. So, but the students are probably coming out with the mentality of, I'll take any work, anything on here. If you like the motion graphics, I'll go do that. If you like the type, I'll go do that. If you like the dragon, I can do that as well. So they want to put it all on. They want to put that all on there. But at the same time, now they're making a reel for nobody because they tried to make a reel for everybody. And especially as a student without having a lot of work, like, you want to be as open as possible. Like, how do you get specific?
Yeah,
But
no,
maybe,
I'm glad you brought that up. I think a lot of our listeners are, working in the industry and, freelancers and out there doing this, and they probably already have one or two or have made these reels over time and know a lot of this stuff. But for anybody out there that is getting into this, starting, making your first reel, about to do it, what having that approach to it and understanding that you have to make this piece of media for someone and not for everyone is a huge part of it. Just like I was saying, it's you need to understand that this is a commercial for you. You are making, if your job is to make commercials, and that's what a lot of us are here doing, making commercial work, then you have to treat this as if it's a commercial for yourself. And you need to know, because you need to know who the viewer is, and you need to put the right things in there. And one of the I think this is the best thing you could do as a student. You can come out, and if you come out of school with all of your school projects, that's great. Do the school projects, because they're going to open up your it's going to allow you to taste, like Chris said, like all these different flavors. But when you find a flavor that you like, go home and do more of that one. So for me, it was motion design and colorful, like poster inspired graphics and all this stuff. I found that flavor, and I went home and made my own projects based on that idea. And I still went to school and did those things. They would do a visual effects thing, or they do a photo based thing, or editing based, or all that. And that's fine. I learned some good concept about blue screen and green screen and how to do VFX. But every time I went home, I made another project that was my flavor, the thing that I wanted. And then when I graduated, I had all these little 3-second bits. And that's all these projects were, by the way, were 4 to 10-second clips that I could then make my own reel to tell the world, this is the stuff that I want to do, not the school stuff. Because if you rely on the school stuff, you're going to, your reel will look similar to other people's, which is always a red flag. And B, it'll be so disparate and so different that nobody will be able to look at your reel and go, this person is this, like, I get it. And that's really what you want them to say. You want them to look at this reel and say, I get this. I get what they're going for, and I want it.
What would happen if you you do that? And my biggest fear is always like, somebody's going to say, oh, can I see that one thing in your reel? Can I see that whole piece?
and you go make it.
You're like, yeah, give me a week.
No, I mean, I think that's why I focused on it, because my interest wasn't project based. And like Chris was saying, if I knew that I wanted stuff on my reel that I could point at and go, I made that. Oh, well, who did this? I made it. I liked saying that in an interview. And so what I couldn't say at that point is that I had a lot of 30-second pieces. But what I could say is, like, that little 5-second thing or 10-second thing, I made it. And I did the music for it. I did the audio for it. I did everything about it. And that was just, for me, a part of the process that I wanted to be able to say at an interview, or be able to say online, this is my stuff.
No, I think you're right, man. I think that is something that I wish more students did. I think they would quickly see that the putting the projects on the student projects on your reel is not really a reel. But they don't tell you that stuff in school. At least they didn't when I was there. Maybe that's changed now. I don't know. But had somebody told me that, I would have approached it a lot differently.
Rules for reel. Chris, we got to post some reels. I have my latest reel is 2008.
Wow, man. Mine's a little bit newer than that, but I'm not showing it.
Oh,
I can't.
Oh, you can't. You're on the.
Oh,
yeah.
I would be more interested in sharing my oldest reel, because at that point I'm so far removed from it that it's like, okay, this is all just goofy robots like doing backflips horribly on top of each other.
Can we put that in the show notes, Chris?
Oh, maybe. I don't even know if it's online, but we should track that down one day. We keep talking about that. One day
Okay.
we'll do it.
Chad, do you have your oldest reel up anywhere?
Oh man, no, and it'll never see the light of day. It's so bad,
We'll get him to get it.
Have
dude.
to, man.
Well, my first reel was because I was a traditional animation when I was in college, so it was a filmmaking / traditional animation reel, and oh my
I
god,
want to see it,
dude, so bad, so
I
bad.
want to see it so bad. I want to see it.
The funniest, the best thing on there that I was super proud of was I took the audio from Goodfellas, where I think it was Goodfellas, where he talks about, "What am I, a clown?"
What do you call
Yeah.
me, clown?
Joe
Yeah,
Pesci.
and I hand animated a clown doing that monologue, and I thought it was brilliant at the
What,
time.
you look fun- well, look funny to you?
This was like, MTV liquid television time. So for those of you out there old enough to know what that is, yeah, it was like that subversive sort of like Beavis and Butthead, Mike Judge style stuff. I was into that stuff.
All right. I'm gonna talk you into this. Chad. We're gonna find this thing.
Dude,
You gotta show your early
It's on a
stuff.
3/4 inch probably somewhere.
All right, I'm gonna sucker Chad and finding that. Chris, you're gonna try to find your oldest reel, and I just put in show notes my 2008 demo reel and my 2003 out of school demo reel. If anybody wants to watch and laugh at me, totally down with it.
Yeah.
I think that's important, though. I think it's important to show anybody's early stuff for any director, like to put out their work and then understand that their first movie from 20 years ago still exists out there somewhere, and you can go watch it and go, "Holy crap! I get what they were doing. It's not quite there yet, but this is really cool."
Think about like now. So you can't find my early stuff because the internet was just starting out. So it, like, my school reel was on 3/4 and then it went to beta and whatever. So I'm lucky in that my horrible first reel is not permanently existing on the internet anywhere. But everybody that's coming up now, it is like that. They're going to have their very first reel somewhere in the dark web.
I like that, though. We're gonna get this going. We're gonna get a blog post here with all of our first reels on it.
I might have to burn this.
Chad's out of here.
I'm out of here.
Gotta go. Hey, that's a good one. If you're still listening, we're about to wrap up. If you have your early work, we'd love to see it, especially if you're been around the industry for a while. Do us a favor, put both in there. Maybe that's the way to do it. Show us your newest reel and put in your oldest one, and we all get to go see it and say, "Wow, come a long way, man. Look at this. Look at this." It's SD. My original reel. It's a square.
Yeah.
2003, baby.
Dude.
Oh my gosh. All right. We'll wrap this one up. This one it took a turn. We talk about self-promotion and putting breakdowns in your project. We end up talking about reels. The reels have always been, to me, more important than any business card. It's second to meeting somebody in person and there's like 3 great ways to get a job. Is like knowing somebody in person so that as soon as they have a job opening, they go, "Oh, dude, this is the person for this." That's like the best way, right? Second best way is to like get recommended, and you happen to know the person that knows the person that's hiring, and they go, "Oh, I know the perfect person. I'll introduce you." Second best way. Third best way, absolute killer reel where they watch it and they go, "I totally get it. This person is competent. They are good at communication. They're good at visual communication, and they understand that this is a commercial for me to watch and not a show-off reel to show their friends." When that is hit perfect, dude, you are, from what I've seen, you are hired, right? You are in the top 3 list right there.
And I'm glad we're in an industry too where the reel is what matters and not the resume. Like, resumes suck. Like, I hate resumes. I wouldn't want to be in a field where people care about this piece of paper that everybody's just making stuff up. I want to put my work on a reel, and then you judge it based on what it is.
Yep. I agree. I mean, this is what's exciting about this industry too, is you can be out there learning for free online, right? It's getting started for free online, learning all this stuff. And if you pay attention to the commercial side of this and to the design side of this and to all the other kind of business stuff, and this is honestly, I'm glad this is why we try to keep this podcast going, to talk about these things, to talk about the non-obvious stuff about this business. The tutorials, the software, man, that stuff's fun. I still love that stuff. We'll always have those tutorials, but this is the difference between the hobby part of it and doing this for a living. So hopefully there's something in there to think about when you cut your next reel. Please share your current reel. We'd love to see it and share, just see everyone's work too. This is a good community here. We always get great comments in the YouTube comment section. And we also have all these show notes here of all the stuff that we mentioned. And so, if you're watching this now, go down, click on somebody's reel, give them a comment, tell them something you liked, and maybe even something you didn't like. I don't know. Maybe we could be a little proactive here and help each other. Anyway, this is good. I think this will be on the list of stuff to talk more about. Real self-promotion, getting the word out about what you do can be hard. And if you're like me, it's hard to talk about what you do, right? You're like a family member asks, almost anybody asks, like, what do you do? And it's hard. So that reel can be, if done right, that reel could be the perfect answer. What do you do? Rather than tell you, let me show you. And then
let me show you some dragons.
What do
I do? Let me show you some dragons.
Let you like walk cycles? All right, friends. Thank you so much.
Shiny balls.
hey. Cut too close to home. Oh, my reel. 100%. How many shiny balls are on my 2008 reel?
Oh, dude, there's a good contest.
Oh.
Think of at least two. At least two. I mean, not just two shiny balls. Two sets, like two entire
collections,
two collections. All right, that's a good quote. That's a good way to end it. Happy Reel Day, happy Tuesday, happy podcast. Thank you all for joining, and thank you, Chris and Chad, for joining here again to discuss another hour of what's your reel look like. Anyway, stay tuned. This is episode 91. Coming up on 100. We have almost 100 podcasts all about this stuff, all about the business side of motion design. Please give it a check out. And if you're on iTunes or anywhere you get podcasts, it should be almost everywhere. Make sure you subscribe and leave a comment as well. We're just like the start of this podcast. We're always looking for new topics to talk about, new questions to answer. And that's our goal here on the Greyscalegorilla podcast. Talk about old reels. Maybe that'll just be the rest of the podcast. Let's talk about our old
the next 9 podcasts.
The next 9 up to 100. Anyway, thanks again, everybody. Hope you have a productive week. Keep rendering, keep texturing, and we'll see you really soon. Goodbye, everybody.